Hello and welcome to Kloeker's Education Foundation, providing quality content for amazing teachers and students. This is our World History series, and if you're joining us from a previous lesson, welcome back. If this is your first time, we're glad you're here. Don't forget, you can check out the link in the description below for a set of free guided notes to go along with this lesson. And while you're there, go ahead and like and subscribe to the video so you don't got to do it at the end. Appreciate that. So let's get it started. Our big essential question for this lesson is, who was Temujin and how did he establish such a large empire? Our lesson is going to be broken up into three parts. Number one, Temujin, as known as Genghis Khan to some of us, tactics used by Temujin, and Kublai Khan conquering China. Let's set the stage. Now, the Mongols are coming out of Central Asia, Mongolia specifically. They're gaining strength in the north within that region. They're priding themselves on skills in horseback, archery. They're using discipline and courage, very nomadic pastoralists, focusing on the raising and slaughter of animals like horses and goats. They're going to be traveling in groups known as clans. Now, these clans are large kinship groups, meaning they are all family and somehow are related to one another. We see the rise of Temujin. Now, as a small child, his clan is raided by another nomadic group. His mother ends up being killed, and he promises to extract revenge on this other tribe. Now, there are no photos of him, so the best we get is a painting and then the modern statue attributed to him in Mongolia. Now, Temujin is going to rise and prove himself as a mighty warrior, ultimately getting revenge on this clan that murdered his mother. And as he continues to take leadership of his tribe, he is slowly defeating his enemies one by one, and will ultimately unite all of the tribes. He pulls them together in a big convention of sorts and proclaims himself Genghis Khan, which meant universal ruler. Owning much of Asia, he then had one other major goal, and that was to invade and conquer China. And so by 1225, Central Asia is solely under Mongol control. You can see from this map that when Temujin took upon the title of Genghis Khan, he was going to expand the Mongol Empire, and that dark green is going to be the large empire at the time of his death. He dies, and the empire will split into 4 khanates, which are all unified as one Mongol Empire. However, they're going to operate and act differently. We'll break that down in just a few moments. And you can see the expansion of 70 years going into Eastern Europe throughout Southwest Asia and conquering Song China. So why was Genghis Khan so successful? Well, he was a brilliant organizer. To own and occupy that much territory requires someone to be incredibly organized, and he was brilliant at that. In battle, we know he was a great warrior. He was a gifted strategist. He knew how to use the horse to the advantage of the Mongols, how to use the recurve bow and strategy, such as the circle formation. Now, I'm sure there's a more technical term for it, but as you can see here on the right, as the enemy is approaching, the Mongols would look like they are charging. All this time, they are raining down arrows and spears upon their enemy. As they get close, they are then going to turn back around and ride away from the enemy, continuing to launch arrows and missiles at them. Even as they ride away, again, that mobility, the enemy won't be able to catch them and is under constant fire the entire time. You can never tell when the circle will break, and they will either be in retreat, or if the circle will break and they will be running at you full force in a cavalry charge. To subdue that amount of territory, he's going to use cruelty as weapons and has hundreds of different torture techniques to instill fear in his subjects. Genghis Khan will die in 1227. Now, some historians will argue whether he was poisoned. Some say it was an arrow wound that became infected. However, generally most agree that he died of illness, and the consensus is that it was the plague. However, that was not confirmed. His successors will continue to conquer large territory. His very famous last words are quoted to have said, "I have conquered for you a large empire, but my life was too short to take the whole world." And he did have the largest unified land empire in history. Now, when he dies, the Mongol Empire will be divided up into 4 different khanates. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. Territories going from Kiev in the west all the way to China in the east, destroying populations, the infrastructure, and having a massive impact on the development of civilization. So the Mongol Empire at its peak, again, expanding all the way to the Danube, Moscow in the west, all the way through Song China in the east. But this is the Mongol Empire, and I'll show you in just a second how it was broken up into the different khanates. So here it is. Now you can see the Khanate of the Golden Horde. This is the one that is going to be expanding into Europe that Ivan the Great will stand up against. Ilkhanate, which has destroyed the Seljuks, which create the power vacuum upon their collapse, again blends with the Muslim culture in Southwest Asia. Our central Khanate, and then the Khanate that will become known as the Yuan Dynasty. When we talk about the Mongol Empire, very rarely do they impose their culture and their beliefs on the people. We see the continuation of Russian culture, Russian religion in the western part of the Mongol Empire. We see the separation between the Mongols and the Chinese in the Yuan Dynasty, and the only place we see the blending really happen is within Southwest Asia in the Ilkhanate. They adopt many of the cultures that they rule, especially in that region. And even though there were 4 separate khanates, they were all tied together as they were all blood, they were all family. And so we still see the continuation of stability between the Mongol Empire and the different khanates. Trade is going to continue, and it's arguably going to be much safer because the Mongols control the roads, and they are skilled traveler nomadic, so you never know when they are going to be on the road and when they are going to enforce the law. The Yuan Dynasty is going to be ruled by the Kublai Khan. Now, this is the grandchild of Temujin, of Genghis Khan, ruling over China. He is going to take that title in 1260, wanting to fulfill his father's wish of conquering all of China, and thus his campaign starts. The Yuan Dynasty is going to rule for just about 100 years, from 1279 to 1368, and China is unified for the first time in 300 years, but it is unified under a foreign rule. Now, Kublai Khan is still going to be trading with the other khanates. Of course, we still see that China is going to open up to far more trade, especially since it's coming through the other Mongol khanates. He's going to be living a life of luxury in China. There's going to be an attempted invasion to Japan. The Mongol invasion also included both a sea and land invasion into Koryo, the Korean peninsula. While Korea will fall, we do see the stories of the turtle ship evolving, which is a really fascinating boat that had a roof and metal spikes on it. So when the Mongols would jump off and try to board the Korean vessels, their feet would be impaled by metal spikes. Kind of terrifying, really cool if you go look up a photo of them. And the attempted invasion of Japan. Now they're going to attempt to invade twice, in 1274 and in 1281, about 7 years apart from each other. Both times they're going to be saved, the Japanese are going to be saved by typhoons. Now, the first time in 1274, the typhoon that comes in and wipes out many of the Mongol ships, forcing them to retreat. This is going to inspire the Japanese legend of the kamikaze, the divine wind. Now, after the second time the Mongols tried to invade and being wiped out by a typhoon, they're going to call off any invasion in hopes of conquering Japan and focus on trying to govern the Yuan Dynasty. Kublai Khan is going to expand the Grand Canal, which was been built up by previous Chinese dynasties, and he is just going to try and focus on ruling this massive empire which has not been unified in many lifetimes. Mongol rule in China with the Yuan Dynasty. The Mongols are greatly outnumbered by the Chinese, and they live in segregated quarters. The Mongols do not intermingle and intermarry with the Chinese. They live separate and segregated. The Chinese are not allowed to hold high government offices. They can only serve at small and local levels. All of the high offices are going to Mongols, going to family, or to foreigners because they felt foreigners could be trusted more because they had no loyalty to the Mongols. They were not going to betray someone for the benefit of their own family, nor were they going to look out for the Chinese people that they were ruling over. The Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace, is expanding, again, influencing trade, more trade coming to China, Chinese goods leaving, things like silk, porcelain, gunpowder, paper, and of course, the magnetic compass, which we've spoken about in previous lessons. With the expanse of trade, foreign merchants will, of course, be arriving. This is when we see the arrival of Europeans, such as Marco Polo, who is going to come and serve on the Khan's court for many years. He learns many languages while he is in prison, and he will eventually make it back to Europe, and he publishes his book. Many Europeans, and most of them, are skeptical and don't believe it. They think some of the things he says are totally outrageous. There's a passage in his book where he describes the Khan's royal carriage being pulled by dragons, and then he goes on to describe them, and they fit the description of dinosaurs of that region, to be completely honest, when you read it. And again, this contributes to why many people did not believe his book when he came back. That is just one example, and I'm sure you can do time to research that. Now, the end of the Yuan Dynasty, the Kublai Khan's armies, they suffer many defeats, especially trying to invade Japan. They lose thousands of troops trying to conquer, and things are not going great. Rebellions are starting to pop up. They are losing to the rebels. They're spending tons of money on the wars, the invasions that don't work, trying to build the public works, the own luxuries within the Khanate for the royal family. And when the Kublai Khan dies in 1294, his successors are not good rulers. They can't keep things together. And so within about 70 years, just a few short generations, Chinese rebels from Manchuria will have overthrown the Mongol dynasty in China. This is the establishment of the Ming Dynasty. And with the fall of the Yuan Dynasty, we see that the Mongol influence is beginning to disappear. It is being dissolved out of the Chinese culture, which is fairly easy because of the segregation between the two. And we'll see that Japan will begin to rise in power and stature. So if you would, at this time, go ahead and let's answer our essential question for this lesson. Who was Temujin, and how did he establish such a large and massive empire in Asia? That wraps up our lesson. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, especially if you found this helpful. You can check us out on Teachers Pay Teachers, YouTube, Rumble, and the Kloeker Education Foundation website. We have a ton of resources there for you that you might like and enjoy. Those are linked in the description below. See what's new and what's next in our series as we dive into the Renaissance and Reformation. Click here. Click down below for something you might like. And here to the right to subscribe to our channel. All this and more is just a click away. I'll see you there.